Well, hello. Welcome back to I Care for Your Brain with Dr. Karen Sullivan. We are so excited to be with you this time around because we are only 3 days away from our 4-year anniversary. That is right. For the last 4 years, almost every Wednesday, I have tried to be here with a free brain health lecture. And the whole intent is to increase your access to science-based brain health information. That is so important to me that you have a trusted guide that you can turn to find out, have some clarity on what's going on with you and what exactly you should do about it. What are some evidence-based strategies? So tonight we're going to talk about coping, and this could not come at a better time for me personally. Always good to have a reminder on how to better cope. Life is certainly hard. We are all going through stuff all the time, and especially you folks in the brain health community. You have so much for some of you that has changed in such a short amount of time. It's so much to cope with. So I wanted to revisit this topic tonight after I read a scientific article by Taylor and Stanton. These guys are at the University of California in Los Angeles in the United States. And they just wrote this really interesting paper a few years ago, kind of trying to remind us the control that we have over our coping, because the way they put it is that coping is an action. You are either doing things that are helping you, and you are either doing things that are hurting you, and you might not necessarily be able to discriminate in your own mind that something's actually hurting you that you think actually might be helping you. So the goal of coping skills is to manage, control, tolerate, reduce, or minimize the demands of a stressor. And so what do we decide is a stressor? It's basically something that is going to threaten us in some way, whether that is health-wise, financial, threaten our personal boundaries. And we've decided, because it's a stressor, that we are not sure we actually have the resources to cope with this specific stressor. So kind of our appraisal and the way we think about the things that stress us out is our focus tonight. Negative coping has definitely been in the news more and more because of its wide-ranging negative effects, physical health, mental health, and especially brain health. So that is exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. So thank you so much for being here with me. Stress-related changes that happen in our nervous system when we become stressed are intended to happen over a short, discrete amount of time. You are designed to be able to have a big dump of steroids that go through your bloodstream to help your body be able to get into quick action. All of your blood wants to go to your primary muscles, especially the big ones in your legs, to be able to jolt you into action should a stressor require that fight, flight, or freeze syndrome. So whatever you're going to wind up doing to the stressor, it's going to require more physiological reserves. So your body is kind of mobilizing in this split second to be able to manage a stressor. And we do that very, very, very well. It's a perfectly designed system. The problem is we are overriding the system because the stressors are meant to be rare. They're meant to be few and far between. So how many of us out there right now can say that, I can't remember the last time I was actually stressed about something. I was literally stressed 5 minutes before I got on this lecture tonight, and I thought, wow, you definitely need to take some of your own advice tonight because I was totally, completely stressed out. I actually, for the first time ever in the 4 years, I got done with my last patient at 5 o'clock and I kind of forgot that I had to do this at 6. So I was getting into a whole other mode and then realized, oh, awesome. I get to go talk to my buddies here in the brain health community. So stress is kind of ever present, and that is not good for us. Our nervous system is not designed to be constantly ready to mobilize. That's what leads to the symptoms of hypervigilance that exhaust so many of us, kind of feeling like you can never not be on guard, always feeling like you are kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. What I'm going to try to convince you of tonight is that that's no way to live. And I think I have some pretty good strategies that you can start to put into place to not be in that same mode all the time. So it's that chronic nature of stress that leads to the always being overwhelmed, fatigue, irritable, annoyed, kind of feeling like, one more thing is just going to push me over the edge. So what's awesome is that coping skills can be learned at any point. We do have some foundational life experiences that happen in childhood that kind of set us up for good coping. But even if you didn't have a great childhood, you can definitely put some of these things into action. So the things that we kind of come into adulthood with in terms of coping are a couple different personality traits. One of them is optimism, right? So optimism is, how do we expect things to turn out for us? Do we think that typically things go okay and we're going to survive and we're going to cope? Or do we kind of deep down feel like, do I have a dark cloud over my head? Do bad things just happen to me? Do I have a kick me sign on my back? Control over one's environment is another one. How predictable was your childhood, right? If you could basically predict what was going to happen from day to day, that's a very good base to have in your psyche for positive coping as you get older. There's two more. The next one is self-esteem, right? How much do we actually feel in charge of our own self? What is our relationship to these stress hormones as it relates to how we feel about ourselves? And that's one of the things we're going to focus on tonight, is the way we judge our ability to manage stress. If one of the thoughts we have is that I can't handle this, this is going to kill me, this is, I'm never going to recover from this, that is a stress hormone signature in your body that is tied to your self-esteem. And that's no good, because every time you get stressed out, you're going to have these feelings that are negative about yourself. The fourth one is social support. So how much do you really feel deep down in your unconscious that you can really rely on other people to be there to help provide additional resources if you yourself can't manage the stressor? Okay, so these are kind of like foundations for future coping. What's really interesting is that some of these traits are actually quite genetic. They're not necessarily even based on lived experiences. So they've done some twin studies that have showed that about 25% of the variance in optimism is related to our genes. There's not anything we necessarily did, 20% of it. There's a moderate genetic influence on self-esteem and even a larger genetic contribution to social support, which is just so interesting. But the control that we have now, like I said before, is how we kind of view when a stressor happens. What you might think is that a stressful thing happens and you automatically have a response. You automatically feel stressed out, but that's not true. If we could slow down time and we could actually watch the cognitive process of taking in a stressor, what we would find is that in a split second, we are making a judgment about it. We are deciding how well we are equipped to handle it. So this is called cognitive appraisal. And we have kind of negative appraisals that we can make, and we have positive appraisals that we can make. And how we decide to go is basically what determines how stressed out we get. So an appraisal is basically a judgment. So this is in that split second. How do you really think about this stressor? How do you judge it? How do you label it? Okay. The two most important cognitions that we make are, how threatening is this stressor? So again, pretty unconscious, right? Especially if you're not aware of it. And can I handle this? Do I have the resources within myself, within my community, to come together to help me manage this stressor? So kind of the worst appraisal you could have is to blame yourself. And again, if you just kind of slow down after a stressful thing happens and actually kind of listen to the thoughts that you're having, a lot of times we're finding that we're not really being very kind to ourselves. Things like, of course this would happen to you. You just seem to attract, bad people. So whenever it kind of comes back to you, that's about as negative as it can possibly get. If you then make that second judgment and really believe that you can't handle a stressor that's going to happen, then that's also very negative, because what happens once we decide we can't cope with this? We basically shut down completely, right? And this is called avoidance denial, kind of, shove it down, pretend like it's not happening. We all are masters at that, aren't we? And what happens when you choose to avoid is that nothing changes. You are stuck. And this oftentimes leads to those feelings that we so often have of not being in charge of our lives, of feeling kind of helpless, like nothing's going to change. So the goal of this lecture is to help you realize you can always work on and change what happens within your own self, right? You just have to kind of know better what would be a better choice. So the avoidance path definitely makes us more stressed out. We don't get any opportunity for support. We have no emotional expression of the impact of the stressor on us. And it absolutely leads to catastrophic thinking and no good, no bueno. So I want to give you two much better choices that you can make in the moment right after you hear about a stressful thing. There's two roads we're going to go. If your stressor is something that is changeable, you are going to choose to have an action-oriented attitude. This is the old, like, grant me the serenity to change what I can and accept what I can't, right? If you can do something about it, then you have that within your control. If you have the skills to change is a whole nother matter. So that really often comes down to asserting boundaries for yourself and communicating those boundaries assertively to other people. We're going to talk about those in a minute. So that's if something is changeable. What if something is not changeable, right? You had a car accident, you are paralyzed, there's really nothing you can do. You can work hard in rehab, but at the end of the day, if the doctors tell you they think, you're never going to walk again, that is when we need to have an acceptance-oriented mindset. And this doesn't just come. This is something that you have to work hard at, just like an action plan. This involves you being able to identify what you have lost, to have the proper tools and support to grieve, and then becoming mindful. Mindfulness is the gateway to gratitude. When we are in the moment and appreciating every little thing that we have and noticing the things that are going well, oftentimes we can have a general, more easygoing, optimistic attitude about life. When we're very stuck on what was, or we're fearing what's going to happen in the future, we're not even really present in the given moment. So you really have to recognize when something bad, objectively bad, has happened. What have you lost? What's been taken? And the triumph, the joy, is how can you still live a life of quality and integrity alongside those unchangeable truths? Definitely way easier said than done, but at least if you have some structure to your coping, I think it is helpful. So where can you take these insights? What I want you to think about is in a relaxed moment of self-care, I want you to really think about what are the 5 things that stress you out the most, right? And what I guarantee you're going to find is that the things that stress you out are in a loop. They're happening often, okay? What are the things that are lowering your quality of life? I want you to think about what is your true judgment about why you believe it's happening. Do you blame yourself? Is it kind of illogical when you really think about it with kindness? That's not probably the way it happened, right? The truth is a lot of life is random, and that's a really hard thing for us to accept as human beings, but we really can get into trouble when we make global negative statements about the reason something happened. So what have you done to change that stressor, right? You've got your top 5, you're going to go through them. Okay, is there more action that you could take, or are you avoiding? Are you kind of sticking your head in the sand? Should you have a problem-focused, action-focused attitude, or should you have an acceptance-focused attitude? What is it that you try to put out of your mind? Those are your biggest stressors. I can't deal with this. I can't stand him. I don't even want to think about him, but yet you have to see him every day, okay? The things that are stressing you out the most are the things we're typically avoiding most feverishly. So I want you to really kind of let your defenses down and really try to think of something that is on your mind. And again, kind of make this decision. How do I really think about it? And reassure yourself that you will cope with it. You have a pretty good track record. You've coped until this present day, and probably with some pretty heavy duty stuff. So remember, judging it and then also deciding, is this going to break me? Do I have the internal resources? Yes, I do. I can be very tenacious when it comes to solving problems. I can be patient. Do you have the external resources? Do you have one person in your life that you know that you could really count on? Well, guess what? If you can't cope, then they will be there for you, and they will be along your side in your coping journey. So remember, how we're going to get to better coping is basically deciding that we're in charge of the judgments that we make about our stressors. If you just feel like, oh, I'm just so stressed out all the time, there's nothing I can do, take your power back. Do not go down like that. Realize you can't change everything, but you can work on changing your mindset. So there's 2 awesome resources I wanted to share with you to take this conversation further. One is an awesome app that I recently found that's totally free called Reverie, Reveri. and it is teaching you the power of self-hypnosis. I became kind of a fan of hypnosis a couple years ago when I took my youngest daughter to a local hypnotist who was wonderful because she was afraid of dogs and cats and she really wanted a kitten. And I sat in on the session with her, and it was not only fascinating, but very, very effective. And so I often talk to you all about the importance of positive self-talk. We've talked about things like visualization, and this is where hypnosis comes in. You learn how to give yourself those gifts. So this is a science-based portable coping skill that you can take with you anywhere. I think it was developed at Stanford University, and they've got all different focus. You can work on enhancing your attention, relieving anxiety, better managing chronic pain, improving sleep, and I saw one the other day about quitting smoking, so you got that on there too. It's awesome, it's free, it's accessible, so do yourself a favor if you have a smartphone and get one of those. The other resource is lecture number 5 of Brain School. We are almost halfway through Brain School and we are having so much fun. They have been running about 2 hours each. It is kind of half evidence-based lecture like I do here, and then evidence-based recommendations, so science-focused, and we pick different topics that are very, very key to brain health. And the one that we're talking about, August 12th, guess what? Coping, mental health, how to successfully age, how to feel more and more like yourself as you get older, and that you have an empowered way of being in the world. So we're gonna get way more into stress, the physiological signatures of stress, the unfortunate micro brain damage that chronic stress can do to us if we're kind of caught in a very traumatizing pattern. If you go to our website at icareforyourbrain.com/school, you can sign up. There are still some slots left. Carrie is going to post the link for you in the comments, and that's August 12th. So with your registration fee of $17, you get access to the live lecture, the video of the lecture after, and a 68-page companion workbook that you'll get emailed to you when you register that has all my slides, has all sorts of tracking sheets, interactive devices to help make these recommendations really come to life. Because if it just kind of stays here as an intellectual interest, that's not having the effect that I want it to have and that I know you want to have. And so if you have these tools and you can track your behavior, that's what psychology tells us actually works. So we have designed a wonderful program called Brain School that we're really, really proud of in North Carolina. We've done it in person a number of times, and we have had thousands of people come to our lectures. We have won an award for innovation in North Carolina in bringing this information to older adults, and it's something that we've worked really hard on and we're really proud of. So if you would do us the honor of being our guest at Brain School, we would love it. So take care, everyone. I'm not going to be here for the next 2 weeks. I am lucky enough to be going on my first 2-week vacation of my life. So I will not be here, but I know they will be posting plenty of awesome lectures from the past, and I will be back with you 2 weeks after that. So if you like our message here at I Care for Your Brain, please share this. We are 37 follows away from 9,000 followers, and I'm really hoping that we get there by our anniversary, which is July 24th. If you are an old school listener or if you are a newer person to our platform here at Facebook, thank you so much. You're really helping a dream come true, and you are active participants in your brain health when you listen to me and when you take these recommendations and bring them into your everyday life. So good on you. Be proud of yourself. I will see you guys again in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.